Happy New Year, everyone! And with the new year, not only do we get some self-reflection that shows ourselves legitimate faults of ours that we'll be trying to make fruitless attempts to better, but it's also winter time. With it being winter, not only does that mean that everything is dead, but it also means that many of us will suffer from seasonal depression, including myself. Apparently, because my motivation has dropped through the floorboards recently, and I've essentially just been sleeping all day, accomplishing nothing. I also remember this being a bit of a problem for me last year as well. Believe me, I've been wanting to make numerous videos in the past couple months, but I haven't been able to push myself to get much done, sadly. Although supposedly writing about positive things you're thankful for can help with seasonal depression, maybe? So I'll just use that as an excuse to make an overindulgent, overly sentimental video about myself and about my experiences of some games that I adore on one of my favorite gaming platforms of all time, the Game Boy Advance. Typically, I try to refrain from talking about topics that have been covered an endless amount of times before, unless I'm able to bring something different to the discussion, or at the very least present them in a different way. But I don't care right now, and this is a good excuse to play some of these games to make me feel happy again, or at least attempt to, so please allow me that. I'm just gonna sit down and write whatever I want, and I'm just gonna go off on side tangents whether you like it or not, but it's too late, you've already clicked on the video, let's go! When I was young, I got into video games because I knew my sister was into them, and my first gaming device was a purple original model Game Boy Advance. Unfortunately, the only game I had was Tonka Construction Site on the Game Boy Color. I didn't really play it at all, but the first game I saw in the store and desperately wanted was Super Mario Bros. Advance 4. I had no idea what it was. What's that? Mario Advance 4? Super Mario Bros. 3? What does that even mean? Who's this red man with raccoon features? I don't know. All I knew at the time was that it was a colorful box and that I thought I needed it. Looking back, I know my favorite color at the time was yellow, so that probably played a good role in that since the whole box is all yellow. And thankfully, I ended up getting it. Too bad for me, the game was hard. For my baby brain, at least. I was barely able to get to World 2. I was just about to give up on the game, and thereby negating this entire realm of reality in which I find myself actively obsessed with Mario and video games at large, until I mentioned in my first grade class that I was having trouble playing it. My teacher overheard and actually printed out guides for me and talked to me about the game and secrets therein. Suddenly, I was filled with enthusiasm to try the game out again. And just like that, suddenly the game clicked with me. Using the knowledge and secrets she would tell me as the school days went on, I was able to get to the end of the game and beat it. Then I played it again. And again. And again. And again. Okay, you get it, I played it a lot. Essentially memorizing every facet of the game. All because my teacher heard me mention Mario, had her own experience with the original Super Mario Bros. 3 from the NES, and verbally helped me through it. If it wasn't for her, well, I'd probably be a completely different person now. Probably would have given up on video games. The game itself, though, ooh boy. It's obvious why it's well regarded as one of the best Mario games. Each world has its own distinct feel. There are various unique fun power-ups. There are a lot of levels and each have their own identity, but they're all short enough as to not bore the player. You've got loads and loads of secret blocks and hidden rooms. If you're a Mario fan and haven't played through Mario 3 already, you're doing yourself a grave disservice. AKA my editor, who's editing this right now. He's never played it. Please ridicule him in the comments for being a fake Mario fan. Thank you.
Please don't do that.
Exclusive to the Game Boy Advance version of this game, we have everyone's favorite bit-crunched voice clips of Mario and Luigi talking, which they sound,
Just what I needed. Mamma mia. Here we go. Super Mario.
They sound pretty good, yet as bad as some people say it is, it's kinda nostalgic to me at this point. Also, you could just patch out the voices if you want, with the power of emulation. I won't tell anyone. Then we have the e-reader levels. For those of you who are not in the know, the e-reader was a failed companion device for the Game Boy Advance. You'd swipe cards into it, which would unlock various types of content for games. In the case of Mario Advance 4, there were 4 packs of cards you could get. These cards would have power-ups to give yourself and brand new levels. Think of it as DLC before actual DLC was a thing. But, only 2 of the total 4 card packs were released in the US, and none got released in Europe. Only Japan got all 4 packs, which had a total of 38 levels. Compare that to the mere 11 levels I had in my original game, and well, that's just a shame. To the child me, this was one of the cruelest things imaginable, probably because I had yet to understand how cruel the rest of life would be. Back then, I didn't understand why Japan wouldn't have given us all the level cards as well. I would always ask my dad if I could have packs 3 and 4, but he would always, of course, say, "No, they don't exist! What are you talking about? Shut up!" And then my response back being, "But they do!" Those remaining unreleased levels, I never thought I would ever be able to play them. When I was young, I would look up videos online of the levels and be envious of the ones playing. There were save states online for the Mario Advance 4 ROM that apparently had you able to access these extra levels, but I never got them to work. To my surprise, in 2016, Nintendo released Mario Advance 4 on the Wii U Virtual Console, and with it, they had unlocked every e-reader level. The elusive levels that child me dream of being able to play properly and experience, I was finally able to play them for myself. Compared to the game's original levels, these new ones actually put up a fair challenge. Some of them taking a few tries to beat, and then maybe a couple more tries to try to get all the collectible ace coins. For any and all Mario enthusiasts, this is a welcome package. It's essentially official ROM hack levels of Mario 3. These levels have enemies and concepts from previous Mario games, such as throwable vegetables from Mario USA, charging chucks from Mario World, and even new concepts like the blue boomerang item. And here returning is one of the most OP power-ups in all of Mario, the cape from Super Mario World. They even have a whole fortress level designed for the Kuribo shoe, everyone's favorite item that was used once in the entire game of Vanilla Mario 3. Vanilla Mario 3 also never had any ghost houses, but the e-reader levels add 2 ghost houses that have an all-new tile set to them. For the most part, the levels give a fun challenge. Although once you get to the last page of levels, you play like 5 Bowser type levels in a row and that gets a bit tiring. The only real disappointment here is that they maybe had ideas for more levels, since there's still a bunch of unused content in the game's data that they could have used. But still, what we got were 33 brand new stages and 5 stages remade from Super Mario Bros. 1. That's not much to scoff at. I recommend picking this up on the Wii U for all you Mario enthusiasts out there. But it's on the Wii U, so that doesn't mean much for most people out there, so whatever. Kirby is a beautiful boy with beautiful games. A couple of my favorites being from the Game Boy Advance, Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland and Kirby and the Amazing Mirror. Do you know what makes a good Kirby game? Well, level design and abilities, but I'm about to talk about something deeper than that. The backgrounds. My god, look at these. These are otherworldly paintings, but they act as the backdrop to your adventure in Nightmare in Dreamland. They have such an ethereal quality to them that just makes them feel comforting. I want to be here. I want to explore these places. Then you have the backgrounds to the Amazing Mirror, which are fine. Most of them don't retain the ethereal landscape painting quality from the Nightmare in Dreamland backgrounds. Some of them manage to almost get the feel right, but still gotta give credit to the Amazing Mirror though. It was the last Kirby game that Sakurai was involved with, even if he was just special advisor or whatever the heck that means even. But the Amazing Mirror still has something Nightmare in Dreamland doesn't have. An open world. That's right, an open world Kirby game where the player is largely able to explore and find levels in a non-linear fashion, filled with branching paths and secrets. Paths and secrets with a lot of dead ends. But nevertheless, I'm surprised they've never revisited this idea before. Could you imagine an online multiplayer open world Kirby game where you and a couple of friends or so could help one another explore or go off on your own if you so wish, but you could still all work together towards a common goal? Sounds like the change of pace that Kirby could use after his past 4 core games being a bit too samey. Except for Planet Robobot. I still love you, Robobot. Speaking of concepts I'd wish they'd bring back, one of my favorite parts of Kirby and the Amazing Mirror was finding treasure chests with spray paints in them. These spray paints would unlock alternate colors for Kirby to play as, which sounds like such a foreign concept now, unlocking alts by playing the game rather than through loot boxes, but I digress. Nowadays, unless you're playing multiplayer, or in Smash Brothers, Kirby is always pink. But even in multiplayer, you only got 3 colors of Kirby at best, while in the Amazing Mirror, you had a total of 14 colors. This concept was eventually brought back for Squeak Squad, where they actually retained all the colors from the Amazing Mirror but added 5 more. These unlockable colors wouldn't be hard to implement into a new Kirby game, and they would act as a good unlockable and a good incentive to try to actually explore all the levels in these Kirby games. But no, I guess we just have to be happy with puzzle pieces that unlock pictures that don't even do anything, or perhaps don't even look very good for that matter. Alright, so originally this video was meant for me to be more positive and write about nice things that I enjoy, but this next section where I talk about Mario and Luigi is probably the most negative this video is going to get. So, oops. Even when I'm writing about things that make me happy, I still can't seem to not get upset about something, so here we go. Cartoonishly endearing and imaginative, Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga is a game I love playing over and over. Thankfully, it's only like 10 hours. The adventure goes through a whole new kingdom, where instead of mushrooms everywhere, it's beans! Bean fields, bean forest, bean laboratory where the scientists get forcibly turned into monsters you can kill. Wait, what? Superstar Saga manages to take mostly familiar locales, but inject enough personality into them to make everything still feel fresh, which is a common thread with many Mario RPGs. Taking something as basic as a field, but managing to make them stand out on their own and memorable. Kinda sucks that the later Mario and Luigi games lost this ability. Likewise, it's unfortunate that my enjoyment of this series only has gone down after the first entry, especially after Bowser's Inside Story. Even when people swear up and down that Dream Team is one of the best games and Partners in Time is somehow far and away the worst. I have to be a contrarian on everything, don't I? Even when I don't want to be. Also, can we talk about how bland the cover art got after Partners in Time? Okay, cool, that's all I wanted to say on that topic. Moving on. I love the graphics of this game. They really add to its personality. And I guess we have the limitations of the Game Boy Advance to thank for this, because now that we essentially can make anything we want with graphics nowadays, and creative decisions are no longer based on limitations of the systems they're on, we might as well make everything look the same. We can't have expression or personality in how we present the Mario characters or worlds now. Everything has to be stagnant and stale. If everything doesn't look the same, how will we know it's Mario? Which obviously has each individual title have significantly less charm, when a lot of the charm from the older games came from their unique presentations and feels. People always say how they want a true sequel to Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars, me included. But what would that even look like? For me, a huge part of the game's appeal is the isometric view and the odd pixelated 3D models of characters. The game feels good with the strange, different direction of its presentation. I can just about 100% guarantee you they would not make a game look like this today thanks to the advancements in technology. So I don't really know if I want a Mario RPG sequel if it's not going to retain the same appeal and look. Still on this topic, people criticize the 3DS remake of Superstar Saga for taking out some of the cartoonish quality that the original Superstar Saga had. While they're not wrong, in fact, I agree with them, and it's kind of frustrating in some areas where they kind of dumbed down the creativity. I'm still fairly happy with the remake, except for one disappointment. The original game was exceedingly easy. It was too easy to make your stat builds overpowered to the point of bosses going down in a couple of turns. So what did Nintendo do in the remake? They added an easy mode to an already easy game. What a fucking joke. I get it. Some people just want to be able to play and get through the game even when they're literal babies, but can you also throw in something for the more experienced players as well? Like, I don't know, a hard mode? Wario Land 4. With over a dozen levels to explore and many of them featuring very unique aesthetics and music, this is a Game Boy Advance platformer I don't see mentioned too often nowadays. Now, I love just about everything that Wario Land 4 has to offer, except for the bosses, but it wasn't always like that. I used to find the game to be a bit of a stressful chore, actually. I don't necessarily blame myself for feeling this way, because the game has a strange juxtaposition about itself. It's a game that throws you into a level and expects you to get from A to B, and then within a limited amount of time, get you back to point A again. The thing about that though is these levels are usually a bit like mazes with multiple paths to explore at once. When I first played this game, I found that to be intimidating and stressful. I had to explore everything and find everything, and when I didn't or couldn't, because some areas would only be accessible after you got to the end of the stage first, that stressed me out. I felt like I was missing out on a lot of stuff. Eventually, as I kept missing more and more rooms, items, and money, I went numb and my style of playing the game changed to rushing through all the levels as fast as I could just to get it over with. That was not a smart outlook. That isn't how this game was made to be played. You see, a lot of these levels have oddly soothing and relaxing soundtracks to them, such as this rainforest, or this beach, or this active volcano. In most other platformer games, you would know what a water levels, snow levels, or lava levels music would sound like. And yet, in true Wario fashion, Wario Land 4 doesn't seem to care about this, taking a much more weird, chill approach. When I first played the game, I did not like this, finding that the level songs just didn't fit and were therefore not enjoyable. And so, when I recently decided to replay Wario Land 4 to give it another chance, I forced myself to change how I played the game. When I started a level, I would stop myself, put down the controller, take a deep breath, relax, gently hold the controller again, take in the music for a moment, and then play. I told myself I would take things as they come, to get to whatever branching paths I could get to when I could get to them. Suddenly, the game became immensely more enjoyable and engaging as I allowed myself to take the time to truly soak in the levels, learning their layouts, which is clearly something that the designers intended on you doing. Suddenly, I was actually appreciating the music rather than being mildly confused by it. The Japanese lady singing soothingly during a beach level? Still doesn't make sense, but sign me up! Though, again, the reason why I don't blame myself for not adopting this playstyle for the game sooner was the juxtaposition the game gives to you. Every time you get to the end of a stage and have to rush back to the beginning, Wario yells, and the game always plays this exact same panicked music. This mixed with some of the level design that isn't inexplicably made to waste your time didn't make me want to chill and take in the game's varied environments. Now, to the bosses. Oh, the bosses. These are the epitome of made to waste your time. That is their sole purpose, to run down the clock, with occasionally surprisingly strict countdowns, and even stricter windows to attack them. You only have so much time to wither away at the boss's health. These bosses are a huge blight on an otherwise very engaging and fun 2D platformer. But hey, at least we never have to worry about Nintendo making bad design choices like this again for a Wario Land game. You know what I'm saying? It's because they'll never make another Wario Land game again. That's what I'm saying. The last one was on the Wii. At least we'll have Pizza Tower soon, which is heavily based off of Wario Land, which hopefully should be pretty good. I hope. One final note of Wario Land 4. Each level has a collectible CD that you can listen to in the sound room. And for years, I always thought these CDs were just the exact same music tracks from the levels that you could unlock, because that's how sound rooms always work in games. But I was wrong. Very wrong, actually. All of these CDs unlock brand new songs. Most of these aren't even songs in a conventional sense. There's a track that you can collect called About That Shepherd, which features the sounds of wind, as if you were on top of a high mountain, as you hear dogs bark and sheep baa. You also have So Sleepy, which is just the sounds of floorboards creaking, someone snoring, and eventually a cuckoo clock will go off. Those ones are more ambient than anything, but then there are others that are more like songs while still being, well, we'll just say experimental. You have such classics as The Judge's Feet, Avocado Song, and who can forget You in Your Shoes. These CDs were always fun to unlock because you had no idea what the next track would be, and they would always be worth listening to at least once. And these pictures that randomly pop up in the sound room are terrifying, and I love them. So all in all, I'm glad I was finally able to appreciate and enjoy Wario Land 4, even if it took me most of my life so far to get to this point. The Game Boy Advance is home to 3 Fire Emblem games, and it was the first time the Western world had ever even seen a Fire Emblem game. Though that's as far as I'm going here, because I'll inevitably do videos on all 3 of these games. Eventually. Like many things, I've tried to like Earthbound over the years, but it never quite clicked with me. I eventually did beat it, but it wasn't as tight of an experience as I would have liked. It was also a pretty slow-paced game. Now, Mother 3 on the other end, oh man! Things were made more streamlined and linear for Mother 3, but because of that, the pacing was made airtight, so you're pretty much always experiencing something new. Whether it be some quirky bit or something story-related, you're always doing or seeing something new to keep you engaged. There are so many little moments in this game that add up to a very memorable experience. All that along with a heavier emphasis on story, and a much more touching, depressing story than before, makes Mother 3 far and away the superior game for me. It's a game that's among the few that got me to the verge of tears by the end. And I'm only mildly embarrassed to admit that. The music, oh my lord, the music! Every song in this game is nothing short of absolutely amazing. And there's over 6 hours worth of music in this whole game. On a Game Boy Advance game. Over 6 hours! There are a lot of songs that are just alternate versions of one another, including even more songs that share the same leitmotif. Yet, with the alternate versions of songs, this only makes the areas feel more dynamic. And with all the motif usage, that only adds to the character of the game. Plus, the motif itself is catchy and memorable, so I'm happy to hear it over and over the entire game, honestly. Music is important in Mother 3, and not just because of the sheer amount of it, but it's also important as a battle mechanic. Something I had no idea about before going into the game, and something I don't see talked about much at all, is how tempo is used in battle. If you press the attack button along with the tempo of the song, you'll do combo attacks for extra damage. With this, you can do an upwards of a 16-hit combo. This tempo mechanic is not imperative to beating the game, but the addition of the tempo attacks in battle can make things more interesting for those music majors or musicians out there. I can't get the hang of it though. Oh yeah, the time signature is 2916. Yeah, that's easy. I can do that. At the present time, it's difficult for me to put into words the feelings I have for Mother 3, and I really don't want to get into spoilers, so I'll just end my spiel here after some closing thoughts to try to contain myself. I cannot stress this enough. If you're even remotely into RPGs, play Mother 3. It's only about 25 hours long, which isn't too bad for an RPG. You will not regret it, unless you are a pessimistic, unfeeling asshole. And if you are, then that's okay, whatever. It's not for everyone, I guess, even though it should be. Even if you think you've had part of the game spoiled, believe me, it won't ruin the experience as a whole. I myself had a major part of the game spoiled, but did that ruin the impact of the scene of when it happened? Nope. There's only a couple major plot points that people can spoil for you. So again, believe me, it won't ruin your experience if you already know them. If for whatever reason you can't play the fan-translated Mother 3, because Nintendo of America is never going to make a translation for it, I strongly recommend watching Vinny Vinesauce's stream of the game. He's a good funny boy and I like him. Link in the description for the playlist to all the stream videos. In the end, Mother 3 is a more traditional JRPG, but it won a place in my heart amongst my most favorite memorable games. So today we were able to talk about some games with washed out, overly pixelated graphics on a tiny crappy screen with highly bit crunched audio, but you know what? I wouldn't change any of that. I absolutely love the Game Boy Advance. That was nice, wasn't it? A trip down memory lane with some absolutely fantastic games, with only a few snarky pessimistic remarks here and there. It's just a shame I feel the seasonal depression creeping back in already, so I think I'm just going to go back to sleep. Good night.